Greetings from a very warm Castle Goring from Nikki, Aurora, and from me. Well, I think we're going to have some fun today. But before we start on the fun, let me address the serious matter of thanking Robert Brown for those beautiful flowers. He thanked me, can you believe it, for the idea of celebrating Thomas Markle's 80th birthday. I am very pleased to say that we have so far raised over 5 times the target, and nearly 3,000 people have contributed. Thank you, thank you, thank you, everybody. I think I am going to wrap it up at the end of this week, and therefore whoever wants to give needs to give during this week, because I think I am going to wrap it up. I think it is appropriate that it has a shelf life and that we don't keep it open too long, because that becomes inelegant, don't you think? So without further ado, I am going to plunge in with what Denise Story has to say. And we will start to have fun at the expense of the clowns. Talk about clowns, but malevolent clowns. Lady C, I watched the Meghan and Harry interview. Oh, how many times did you have to go to the lavatory? My very first thought was that those poor people who suffered such terrible losses were completely used by Meghan and Harry. I felt so sad for them that they don't know they were being used. I have to tell you, those were my sentiments exactly. I was outraged on their behalf. Now, I am an ambassador for SOS, Silence of Suicide, which was started by Michael Mansfield, the great British advocate, as a result of his daughter's demise. It is a very serious, complex subject. I have lost friends and relations. And also, during my teenage, when I was completely trapped, I was very aware of the fact that I might have to take an irrevocable choice if I remained trapped ad infinitum. To have that fraud Meghan dare to speak about, and also, quite frankly, to have Jane Paulsley, or whatever her name is, because I'm so annoyed, I can barely remember her name, feed her the question, and then to have CBS cynically maximize upon the whole matter for their own profit, with introducing Oprah and I'm such a delicate flower. Meghan is not a delicate flower. Meghan had the message that she came to these thoughts because of trial by tabloids. First of all, as I have shown in my book, Meghan and Harry, The Real Story, Persecutors or Victims, the tabloids were not giving her a hard time at the time that she has placed her supposed ideations, which incidentally I don't believe for a second. I think the woman is a total liar and a total fraud. I am totally unconvinced by one word out of her mouth, especially on that subject. And if she thinks I'm doing her an injustice, I would encourage her to sue me. It is outrageous, and I would look forward to seeing her in a court of law and have her explain to a judge how it is possible that the story that she came up with, the cock and bull offensive story about curled up in a ball and then having to get dressed and going to the Cirque du Soleil at the Royal Albert Hall, and I was crying in between each act. I was just a poor angel. I was clinging on to him for dear life. One tail left eye. All lies. She was at the Mayhew Animal Centre that afternoon, getting down on her haunches and having the baby bump be flatulent on her way back up. That was what she did on the day that she times it as having been curled up in a ball at H when he came home. I mean, to anybody who has ever, through force of circumstance, found themselves in a situation where they had such thoughts, the ravishment of their misery, the ravishment of their distress by this fraudulent opportunist. And if she thinks I'm unfair, I invite her to sue me. Because I know I'm speaking the truth. And I know she's lying. And I know she's lying out of her own rotten mouth. Her story doesn't add up. Then she has the unmitigated gall to issue the threat that she's only scratched the surface. Of course you've only scratched the surface, because there is nothing beneath the surface. But is the royal family supposed to be worried? Is anybody with a brain in their head supposed to be worried? No. Meghan, give us the fuller story. Give us more heartstrings time. Let's take out our violins and play. Oh, poor Meg's baby. Oh, she suffered so greatly. And so I could ask her a few questions, such as, Meghan, why did you suffer so greatly? What led you to these ideations? It wouldn't happen to be the fact that the baby bump took a dive at Birkenhead, would it? Could it? Oh no, in front of the press. Oh, the panic. Oh, can you believe? They're gonna think that I'm faking my malignancy. H, what are we gonna do? Well, Meg, I think maybe you should go to HR. You think that's a good idea, H? I mean, how can we go to AR? AR is for the rabble. It's for the employees. It's for the staff. It's for all those people that we spurn and spit upon. Well, Meg, I think in this instance, you'd better go to HR. Yes, yes. That's one possibility. The other one, of course, is that it popped into her head because she has more brains than he does. Well, none of it makes any sense whatsoever. And you noticed that she put her hand on his leg and she feigned being surprised by the question about her ideation. Well, I'm here to tell you, there is no way that that interview took place without that not having been agreed beforehand. I am very experienced with the media. Before Meghan was born, I was in the public eye. There is no possibility of CBS and Jane Paulsley or Paudley or whatever the heck her name is, Paulie, I think it is Paulie. Anyway, whatever her name is. Because quite frankly, I feel she was very badly used. And she's a professional. She's paid to do what she did. You could say it's mercenary, but mercenaries are paid. And she's paid to do what she did, and she did it. I have no criticism of her whatsoever. And when people say she shouldn't have done it, of course she should have done it. She's a professional. Professional lawyers all the time defend people who they have every good reason to believe are guilty. And interviewers will ask questions as well. The fact that it was a soft interview as well, again, was appropriate to the circumstances. Now, what Meghan and Harry and these people have done, and you notice it was done with Archewell in conjunction with the newly created format, whatever you call it. I don't know what word one would use to call it. Website, group, shall we say group? It's actually a wonderful thing for them to have done. It's replicating what we in England are doing with SOS Silence of Suicide. So, and that was Michael Mansfield's idea. I think it's a very good idea. And they made it absolutely clear that from here on in, it's going to be online. And why were Meghan and Harry involved? Meghan and Harry approached them. Meghan and Harry got wind of this. Archewell, this is an Archewell creation. To give Meghan and Harry a platform so that they can spin around and try to muzzle the people with the First Amendment. And that organization, that group, that entity, whatever you want to call it, which I think is actually rather worthwhile, has been exploited by Meghan and Harry, whose agenda is censorship, using the pity fest. She was not victimized by the tabloids in this country. The tabloids in this country have systematically covered up for her and still haven't done their job properly. Very important point to remember. Also, the fact of the matter is, most of the people whose children were lost, and this is YouTube, so I need to not use certain words too often. If you listened carefully, most of them were not lost to online bullying, but to drugs. Drugs. How dare anybody insult the intelligence of the viewing public by having a renowned self-confessed drug user who clearly has blown any brains he ever had, not that he had any to begin with. And as for what the thing he's married to, I won't even go there. How dare they jump on this bandwagon, ignoring the fact that most of the stories have nothing whatsoever to do with online abuse. I mean, it's unbelievable. And also, their organisation, the Sussex Squad, is the most vicious online abuser at present. I mean, this is actually outrageous. Now, having said all of that, they will jump on another bandwagon, and hopefully, once the people involved realize that they have simply been used and exploited by Harry and Meghan for their latest fix for attention and publicity, they will move on to have the forum that they created and that I certainly would support. I support it in England and I would support it in the United States. My heart went out to those poor people. I thought the whole thing is a shocking disgrace. I'm not sure why Tiss says some of these names. Oh, I should say first, sorry. Before, sorry. You notice the hand on the leg. And you notice how Jane Pauley said that for them to support each other. Well, I've been told by somebody who knows them rather well that the hand on the leg wasn't put as support. It was put to warn him, you better keep quiet and shut your clap trap and let me get on with my clap trap. That's right. It was a warning to him. It wasn't supportive. And had it been supportive, he would have taken his hand and cupped hers. He didn't. He was as still as the grave. I make that point for what it's worth. It was made to me by somebody who knows them well and knows rather more than is convenient to them about their relationship. Let me leave it at that. I'm not sure why Tiss says, regurgitating parts of the Oprah interview again, so we may not forget on today's CBS interview. That's right. Cynical exploitation. So let's see what Denise Smoot says. Lady C, why does anyone know, does anyone know why the obstetrician who supposedly delivered Lily in America suddenly dropped her other patients out of the blue and disappeared? Yes. Does anyone know? Yes. Am I able to say no? Why am I not able to say? Well, let me put it this way. I'm very attached to my money. And there are certain lines which one crosses at one's peril. Shall I leave it at that for the moment? But you know, things have a way of reaching the surface. I leave you with that thought. Leslie Simmons says, I hope you're not related to Bill. How can the Sussexes contribute any help or support to those who may be considering unaliving themselves? Didn't they struggle to get help for her when she felt that way? My God, if he can't help his wife, he can't help anyone else either. So full of it. Very good point, Leslie Simmons. First of all, he had his therapist on speed dial, so they could have got help if it were true. I mean, I don't think it would have been very convincing for them to have got help from a therapist by saying, oh, you know, we were at Birkenhead yesterday and day before yesterday, and depending on which day, they're finally getting in touch with the help. And, you know, the baby bump all of a sudden dove between Meghan's knees. And to those of you who think it was the wind, there is a wall behind the photograph. Walls do not fart, to be blunt about it all. Walls don't give off a wind. And they certainly don't blow wind in ricochet. It doesn't happen. It's physically impossible, number one. So let's scrap that bit of nonsense right there. And number two, why is up here pretty flat at that point, which a short while before had been extremely protuberant? Look at the photograph. So, they ring up and they're saying, oh, Meg's really worried. She's really worried. She thinks people are going to be accusing her of having padded or something along those lines. Oh, we need help. What sort of help? Well, maybe to suppress the observations of everybody who was there and saw what happened and photographed it. Oh, but that's not a medical problem, Your Royal Highness. That is actually something entirely different. I think you'll have to find a remedy elsewhere. One tear left eye. I'm going to have to do away with myself. Otherwise, I'm going to have to do away with everybody's right to freedom of speech. Well, I know which one comes first. My rights come before anybody else's. So I'm going to thrive and flourish, and everybody's going to have to be silenced. That's the reality of what, in my opinion, has gone on. Again, they don't like what I'm saying. Explain to me how it is that Meghan's behaviour when she was pregnant was so suspicious. Because one way or the other, whether it was padding or a different sort of padding, something definitely went on that was highly irregular. And since they have shown themselves to be duplicitous and dishonest, with not even a passing acquaintanceship to truth or decency, I am afraid, until they provide us, the public, with the answers we deserve, especially those of us who are citizens of the countries of which he and she could be king and queen. Not to mention, the children could be king or queen. Well, I'm sorry, I have nothing against the children. I have nothing against children, however they come into this world. My children are adopted, and I certainly have moved heaven and earth to ensure that they have as many rights, privileges, and entitlements as any child that I could have given birth to. So you can't accuse me of hypocrisy or not putting my money figuratively where my mouth is. Nothing against the children, but I do have an awful lot against the games they play and have played and persist in playing. How dare they? How dare they jump on the bandwagon of the misery of parents whose children have ended their lives in such a tragic way? Do they have any concept whatsoever of what is involved? No, but one of the mothers certainly does, because she made the point, and this is a very important point, that you don't have to get over it in a year. In fact, you don't ever get over it, in quotes. You go beyond it, you accept it, you move on from it, and I would encourage them to keep their children's memories alive. And I can't go into the nuances of this on this forum, but I can tell you, if you really want to know, go to a competent organization like SOS Silence of Suicide, and that will give you insight into the problems, the way to live with them. So I hope that answers the question. Bridget Wicks says, "Good evening, Lady C. Meghan has mentioned in their interview that she suffered certain sorts of thoughts," I'm not going to repeat the word again, "while pregnant with Archie." Yes, she was. Yes, she was. With the speculation surrounding her carrying and giving birth to Archie, wouldn't it be a good time to prove it now Archibald has started up their new initiative? How could she be feeling this way if she used surrogacy? Thank you. Well, the answer is she couldn't be feeling it, but she could be feeling lots of other things if the maths table that she has created doesn't quite add up the way she hoped it would. Let's put it that way. Now, I am not saying that she did or didn't do anything. Let me be clear about that for legal reasons. What I am saying is that her conduct has given rise to tremendous skepticism. And you would have thought that if she had indeed been pregnant with Archie, that she would have been, since she's such a feeling mother, and I'm in a family, and I'm in love, and I'm in a compassion, and one act of compassion and change for good at a time. Doesn't Megsy baby realize that it's good to change the dynamic? And since her conduct is the thing that has created the doubts around both her children's legitimacy, that this is an ideal opportunity for her to clear up all the doubts, and not the way she tried to do it in the Netflix series, showing a scan of a baby with all its identifying aspects removed. Oh, no, 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 sweetie pie. If you're going to show it, you need to show it with the name of the mother on the scan the way it's always done. No mysteries. And if you can't clear up the mystery of your own creation, you will lead people with the inescapable conclusion that the reason why you cannot clear up the mystery is because it would be detrimental to your interests to clear up the mystery, because it is certainly in the interests of your children to clear up the mystery, and your failure to do so shows that you are as rotten a mother as you are a daughter. You don't like what I'm saying? Sue me. I'll see you in a court of law. That's right. I will see you in a court of law, where you're going to have to answer the questions that are being raised as a result of your conduct. The iniquity of these people is beyond belief. Inho says, "Dear Lady C, I'm sickened by Meghan presenting herself as an anti-bullying ambassador." Isn't she just wonderful? But she knows all about bullying, that's for sure. Why don't the palace make the report on Meghan's bullying the palace staff public? I think the public has the right to know what she did. The public not only has the right to know what she did, the public already knows what she did. The palace and its former employees have got out the fact that she was a bully, that she was, according to them, a narcissistic sociopath. Now, that's a pretty serious accusation to make against someone. And it was made by former palace staff. It's all out there in the public domain. What the palace cannot do is break the law and breach the corporate protocols involved in investigations. This is a country that is governed by law. You cannot have the institution which the head of is the embodiment, literally, of the law, facilitating public curiosity and its private interests, incidentally, as well, by breaking the law. It's as simple as that. Now, if everybody concerned begged the palace to go public with the report, there would always be the suspicion, if they obliged, that pressure had been brought on the palace former employees and present employees, incidentally, to effectively breach their own confidentiality. This is not something any institution with any foresight and any degree of responsibility can afford to do. So the public already know that Meghan bullied the staff. Don't think it got out without some degree of connivance by the palace staff, because they're the ones, the lower down orders, who went to the press. I've explained this before, and I'm going to explain it again. Senior staff do not leak stories to the press. Junior staff, who may be there for only 2-3 years or 5 years, perfecting the art of being a royal servant so that they can then go on to work for multimillionaires and billionaires and make themselves a shed load of money, which is what they do. So they are opportunistically using the royal family's existence and need for staff as a step up the ladder. And I'm not condemning them for this, by the way. I'm just stating facts as they actually are. They're the ones who will leak. And not always. Only those who have a grouse or feel that they want to make themselves a little extra money and they don't like something that's happened, or are just simply unscrupulous. Many of them are totally scrupulous, totally loyal, and would never do it. So I make that point for what it's worth. I have friends who have employed former royal members of staff. And to those of you who might have listened to what I've said in the past, my butler, sometime butler, used to work for a member of the royal family. So I leave it at that. Not that he would ever condescend to leaking anything to the press, because he certainly wouldn't. And neither he nor I have the sort of relationship where I would be encouraging him to betray secrets. I wouldn't, and he would be too honourable to do it. So let's leave it at that. But not everybody is honourable, in case you haven't figured it out. And I think you have. This is the subject of today's episode, isn't it? Frelou in Paris says, "Greetings to you, Lady C, and your fur babies. Woof woof. During the recent Harry and Meghan interview with CBS, it struck me that megalomaniac looked like she was trying very hard to look and sound like Princess Catherine when she was announcing her cancer diagnosis. It seems as if Meghan thinks that people have sympathy for Catherine's way of speaking, look, mannerisms, etc., and went all soft, slow, and deliberate while claiming she had been driven to the edge. She is definitely obsessed with why people believe Catherine and not her. Well spotted. I understand, incidentally, that that's true. I've been told that. So just interject. Let me continue. There were plenty of Freudian slips, including a subtle threat to the royal family, stating she barely scratched the surface. That's right. Well, she can scratch away till she's blue in the face. Anybody who's been in that boat knows that she's not amphibious. Let's leave it at that. It's unbelievable how it's lost on her that she herself has many crazy things hanging over her that she never connects to our distrust. I wonder why. Sorry, my nose is twitching. I wonder why. Pin. Oh. Keo. How she treated her father, staff bullying allegations, separating Harry from his family, lying at every opportunity. She rarely came across as Amber Heard, claiming, as Amber famously did, people don't believe her. It obviously drives her nuts, mega nuts. Yes, I noticed that she managed to wangle that one in, that the pain is also that she's not believed. Well, Meghan, I don't know about everybody else, but I certainly don't believe you. I've been in the boat and I can tell you something, you've never stepped on deck. I can tell it and anybody else can tell it. It is truly offensive that you would expect intelligent people to believe the load of codswallop that comes out of the orifice which passes for a mouse, but quite frankly, one wonders why you're not sitting on it. Well spotted, though, Frelou in Paris. She's upgraded her game. She's tried a Catherine hairdo. She's tried to modify the makeup. And there are rumours, incidentally, that she's been tweaking. I wonder, who's she going to end up looking like? Michael Jackson? She's heading in that direction, that's for sure. Megsy, you look a lot more like Michael Jackson if you leave off on the bronzer. Remember, as a certain famous comedian said, Michael Jackson went from being a black boy to a white girl. Well, you started out as a white girl. I don't think you really need, since you're obviously competing with Michael Jackson, to sully the whole environment by bronzing up. One World Awakening says, how could she not have seen that the one thing that elevated her status was her position in the very family that she proceeded to slander and turn her back on? That's a very good question. I'm going to answer it in 2 or 3 short sentences, and I'm happy to revisit it if you want in greater depth. She's like all true narcissistic opportunists. She thought she was cleverer than she was. She believed her own lies and Harry's lies, and she believed their publicity, and she believed that when the press said about her wonderful reception in the Antipodes that it was all true, and she forgot all about the behind-the-scenes antics and dramas which the press were colluding in covering up and presenting the tour as the great success. It was not. She thought she got bigger than the studio. It's an age-old phenomenon. B-grade movie actresses from the golden days of Hollywood, who started to believe their own publicity, thought they were bigger than the studio. Then, after they kicked over the traces, they discovered, no, the studio was and remains bigger than they are, and they are out in the cold. And every single action and movement that Meghan has undertaken, often with Harry's collusion, it's got to be said, has shown that she has misjudged each situation constantly. And she just doesn't seem to get it. Meghan, people have seen through you. They don't like what you are. You've got to become a new person if you want people to like you. You're either going to have to rise phoenix-like from the ashes, or then you're going to have to come up with a new act that's somehow going to convince people that you are worth liking. People don't like people who are not worth liking. I often struggle to understand why people don't realize that the average person likes people who are likable. They like people who they admire. They like people who are decent and kind. They don't like sanctimonious, hypocritical, arrogant, arrivist, pretenders. Let's leave it at that. Thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. Please keep the questions and comments coming in. I am happy to address any issue with you that you would like me to address. Take care. Godspeed. And if you have truly enjoyed this, would you care to like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and take good care. Bye-bye.